Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here, broadcasting from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. We're live 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And I've got an interesting comment to make. We just made it because we are connected to Rich Scheben in Montana. We're connected with Miles in Europe. And I'm Vince Finelli. I'm in Missouri. And I believe that we are the first broadcast to be an off-grid broadcast. We've had off-grid power for years, experimenting with it here in the studio. And but to make it really, really neat, we are off-grid not only in Missouri, but Rich Scheben is off-grid in Montana. When Kyle calls in, he's off-grid in Montana. When Gwyneth Isaacs calls in, she's off-grid in Australia. So not only are we off-grid, but we are off-grid intercontinentally. No kidding. That is, I believe that is another first. So thank you for all your hard work, guys. And today, really, really interesting broadcast. We're going to be talking about money. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin. And Rich Scheben's with us in Montana. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vincent Finelli. Always a pleasure.
Great to hear your voice. And, you know, I got a call from one of our very, very loyal class members, students, and instructors, Janet in Missouri. And we were talking about our automobile, and she said, I haven't heard from Miles in a long time. Well, you know, is he okay? What's happening with Miles? And I said, well, you know, he's really busy. It's freezing in Europe where he is, and he's busy. He moved from one house to another, and he's working on that house. He's really, really busy, but I'm sure we'll hear from him soon. That was Friday. Welcome, Miles.
Good morning, guys. I hope you're all doing well, and thanks for having me.
Hi, Miles.
I don't hear Miles.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm on here, so thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to hear your voice as well. So, Miles, you've been really busy, and by the way, are you you're working on your off-grid system? Yes.
Well, everything is here for off-grid. We have a generator for 24 kW.
Wow.
With the Mercedes diesel engine.
Naturally.
Yeah, naturally. And we have a 20 kW solar array, but I haven't had the opportunity to put that up yet. But when spring comes, it's the first thing that goes up in order to have us here totally off-grid. I worked on the water power. This is semi-finished. Needs to have a couple of touch-ups and with the battery banks in order to utilize the electricity from there. Other than that, it was a quite busy time because I was fighting the clock. I had 6 months to renovate a 117-year-old house built out of stones and bricks. It's a 2-floor house, and I managed it that I can heat the entire house now with insulation all over the house with a 7 kW oven only.
Wow. That's really impressive. Now, when you talk about a 117-year-old house, you're talking about thick walls, like a foot thick, right? Maybe even more, right?
I have the smallest depth of walls is 48 inch. The thickest wall is 62 inch.
Wow. Wow.
So
That must be great in the summer.
Oh yeah, it is very nice in summer, and it is great against solar activity. The sun cannot penetrate that much stone, and it's very good to shield EMF frequencies as well. I was very surprised about the measurements we did in here. We don't get any of the EMF pollution from GSM networks that are around, and so we're very happy.
Mm-hmm. And so you could put up a sign that says your cell phone won't work in here.
Welcome to the stables. In the stables, it really doesn't work.
Rich, is that cool or what? 62-inch thick walls.
Yeah, that's something. He's going to have to learn how to use flaming arrows and smoke signals for communication, but that's okay. That's part of off-grid living, right, Miles?
That's exactly right. We're heating the house here on wood. It's I have 4 wood ovens and wood stoves in the house, and we're only using one right now because I managed to put a ventilation system in here that allows me to distribute the heat that is produced in one room evenly throughout the house. And you wouldn't believe how much difference it makes when you insulate the floor from the cold coming up and the roof. The insulation on the roof is 15 centimeters of styrofoam, and it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. It does. And wood heat is the best. Wood heat's dry.
Yes.
It's affordable. It goes into your bones. It's just so much better than electric or propane or natural gas, and it just makes a lot of sense, especially if you have a wood-cook stove like I do, where you can not only cook on it, but get your hot water off of it as well, so we kill multiple birds with one stone. And it's a great tool.
Here.
A lot of fun, too.
Same here. That is an investment that is worth considering. A wood stove for the kitchen, where you have a integrated water boiler, is worth the installation and the investment. It is when I'm heating up my wood stove in the kitchen, I already automatically feed the warm water supply for the stables. So when I go into the stables, I know when I fire up in the morning the wood stove in the kitchen, it is connected with piping and plumbing to the milk chamber and into the stable, so I have hot running water everywhere I go. And this is something, especially when you work on equipment, that is necessary, or even if you have to take a shower outside because equipment maintenance requires your decontamination outside the house, that you don't get it in there. It is very beneficial. So yes, I only can concur to what you're saying. It is really worth the effort and the investment having such a thing.
Well, look at the disposable nature of our appliances today. Since the 1970s, they've been made to last less than 50% as long. So as we export inflation and import deflation into the Western world, quality goes down as the profits for the very few elite wealthy at the very top go up. So we have to learn to start thinking outside the box, and that's where that analogy for the wood-cook stove really comes in handy versus today's modern appliances, especially today's smart appliances, because as we know, we can exchange the word smart with spy by the powers that be, and it doesn't do anybody any good, right?
You know, as you say that, Rich Scheben, I was thinking about we probably have the largest percentage of broadcasters, instructors, guests, if you will, that's the term that other broadcasts use, heating with wood, probably in the world. I'll bet you there's not a single broadcast that has a higher percentage of people heating with wood and off-grid as compared with us.
At least in the developed countries. If you go to India, probably everybody's heating outside, not living in the cities, is still heating with wood. But to pick up on Rich's comment, materials are, of course, not being made the same way They have been built in the 70s. And everything has turned into a business that needs to turn quicker and quicker. I'll give you an example. Cars that are not made with the same quality specifications. Steel is not being casted with the same quality specifications. We're using materials such as aluminum and steel in combination, what creates an ionic current, a galvanization current, and creates oxidation of aluminum, where these parts go bad pretty quick. We have, if you're purchasing an Audi vehicle that is built out of aluminum and has steel bolts, failure is built in from the fourth year on here in Europe and in the Salt Belt, because it's sometimes impossible to get these parts out of a vehicle without destroying the parts and even damaging a chassis or a mount that it was welded on the car, on the chassis. So our powers to be, of course, want to have a gridlock on whatever they can get. And there is, on the monetary part, on the monetary side of it, there are a couple of solutions we can go into for this show in order to prepare ourselves for the coming changes. We are normally, after 70 years, you have a reset of an economy of all, or the economies, the most important economies, with a war. This time it doesn't look like it's going to be a war. This time it looks like it's going to be a different approach towards a reset of the economy. And I think we go into that after the first break, when we go to the marketplace and sell something for the advertisers.
Yeah, that's coming up in just a few seconds. So we're going to be talking about cryptocurrencies. We're going to be talking about, when you think about it, we used to have a currency that was based on tangible assets, gold, silver. Then we replaced that with paper accounting settlement tools, Federal Reserve Accounting Unit, dollars, frauds. And now many of us are using digital transactions on eBay and PayPal and so forth. And what's really the difference between that and Bitcoin? We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Rich Scheben's in Montana. Miles is in Europe. Andy is engineering at GCN. Miles, why don't you take us through the cryptocurrencies and what we're facing?
So, what is most known for us is the Bitcoin as a new currency that has been adopted by a couple of countries already as a official payment currency, and it is in the news because it jumped very quickly from within a year. From $700 to now $7,000, almost $7,000. It's a little bit under that, 6 something. So if you look at the development of the price, if you look at the development of its value, it achieved something that not many assets achieved in history, and that was beating the price of gold. And it was beating the price of gold within 9 years. So since its inception with the programming and the release 9 years ago, it was a success story. I found out about the Bitcoin, or I was familiarized with the Bitcoin, at a time when the Bitcoin was approximately $4 per Bitcoin. And I wished that I would have jumped on that train earlier, just to have my retirement plan created a little different. Today, it's a challenge for somebody to look for an investment or a return of invest to find an asset that has same development and the same characteristics as the Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency that achieved an penetration and acceptance throughout the world with its functionality. And it was necessary for the infrastructure to grow in order to have the processing power for the Bitcoin, and therefore we needed the internet. So when we're talking about cryptocurrencies, we actually need to go back into the 70s when the first computer started communicating over the telephone lines, and you can send facsimiles or message boxes through chat rooms. And then was upgraded in the 90s with the internet, where suddenly you could do online banking, and you were able and capable to handle your financial assets very much easier. The online banking, though, always is working on a national level. You have to have a currency in a country and a bank that you work with that uses this currency in order to pay your bills, be paid, or to receive your wages. Today, in our today's world, where everything has been much more globalized, where it's not important whether you have a programmer sitting in India, in China, in Romania, in America, or in Argentina, a necessity for safe, quicker payments was needed in order to keep the economies growing faster, or at least having the payment streams going faster in and faster out for products and services. So the unofficial version of the Bitcoin is that its code came from the MIT and was a clone from DARPA. DARPA funded MIT to develop the crypto code for the transaction methods, or for the calculation methods, and even for the creation of the Bitcoin as mining. And please jump in at any time if you have a question or if you want to expand on something, because I don't want to have that going on as a monologue. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure. Rich, even do you have a question?
Well, I'll tell you, I wouldn't mind responding, and not to be, from an argumentative standpoint or even start a debate here, Miles, but, I think we need to go back in time a little bit and really set up our situation and discuss business. We have a lot of business words that don't even have definitions anymore. Market fundamentals, fair value, leverage, liquidity, valuations. And after the break, we'll go into more of that. But I just want to set up a few questions for you that you can address for the average Joe out there.
Okay, wonderful. Let's do that.
All right, we'll be right back with Miles and Rich Scheben. Class, we're talking about Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency, a digital payment system. Actually, the first decentralized digital currency. And during the break, Miles used the words paradigm change. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to understand that we're talking about a concept. We're talking about replacing what we thought was money with something that is just in the ether, if you will, a concept. And Miles, please continue.
So, Rich was expanding on curves and bubbles that could be possibly applied to the Bitcoin, and I will touch on that a little later. But let me give you briefly, going back into history. Let's go back to 1911. Back then, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times had articles about an abundance of gold in the Grand Canyon, where a rail line was extended to a place in a valley that is today shut off and guarded by the Marines, where the estimation that was publicly claimed in the newspapers, and you can Google that. Just Google Gold Grand Canyon 1910, 1914, something in between that, where suddenly the banking system, the Federal Reserve System, put a lid on it because they knew that if the United States start mining this gold, all the currencies on the planet would collapse just due to the abundance of gold in the Grand Canyon. And from that moment on, it was it was decided and was very sure for the banking system and for the Federal Reserve System that they need to get rid of the gold as a backing within a certain time frame. And because administration back then didn't work with computer, it was everything with paper. Assets have been calculated in silver or in gold. So it took almost 60 years or 70 years until 1971 when Richard Nixon then took the U.S. dollar off the gold standard. And it was necessary because what you are learning about gold in what we have doesn't apply. We have so much more gold than silver on this planet, and that it would ruin economies instantly only if it would be published that we would have an abundance of gold. Silver is a different topic. Silver is mined between 1 and 10 meters deep. It's not being mined very much deeper. It is on the upper layers of the Earth's crust. You will find something deeper as well, but it's not that lucrative to go into deeper silver mining settings because simply the percentage that you get out of the stone and when you're getting deeper into it is not that high. So the most efficient mining for silver is between 1 and 10 meters depth, and that's what makes it so rare compared to gold, because gold you find much more deeper in the ground, and silver as an industrial appliance for its conductivity and for electronics in general is much more necessary for our future that is coming than gold. So the truth about the gold and the silver has been kept until this day from you. Otherwise, you would have known about the Grand Canyon and the gold in the Americas. And it's for sure, no administration wants to share that wealth with its residents. Where do you want me to go there, or is there a question for that?
Well, I've got a comment, and that is, you're absolutely right, Miles, about silver. As I look around the studio, I see silver everywhere. The wall switches, there are silver contacts. Silver makes a great contact because it doesn't oxidize easily. It just, you can use the same two little points of silver to touch each other to make electrical contact over and over and over again, and it's relatively inexpensive. The wall switches that we have in our house, I think we purchased for the 35 cents a piece. So yeah, it's affordable and it works really, really well. I mean, how often do you replace wall switches? Not too often. You can probably go 20 years, and not only silver in all kinds of switches.
Yes, and where there is one answer why the silver price is rigged so much to such a minuscule amount in value. Because it needs to be available for the industry. It is the metal that you need for special applications, and that is not that easy to get a hold on. So because you need it in order to keep that monetary realm, or that, let's say, the matrix we are living in, to keep that running with the production and the taxation, you need certain assets. You need to make sure that they are available for the industry in order to keep the wheels spinning. And silver is one of those assets that you definitely need everywhere, such as food-wise, potatoes, milk, water. You wouldn't believe how quick you can start a rebellion if you don't feed your the people or the residents of a country for 14 days. What happens next is there will be a consequence, a drastic consequence, for every government that tries to expand on an experiment like this. So,
well, just as an aside, if we rank metals in terms of conductivity, which is important in the transmission of electricity, we know about aluminum, gold, and copper, nickel, and silver. Well, class number one is not copper. It's silver. Number 1 is silver. Number 2 is copper. Number 3 is gold. Number 4 is aluminum. Number 6 is nickel. So keep that in mind. Silver is extremely important. Well, please continue, Miles.
So when you look in history, every economy had its peak time and then its decline. And the decline time was always used in order to present the invoice for a failing economy or for the life cycle of a failing economy to somebody else. All the wars that we have between the Americas and Spain and France and Britain, somebody had to pay the debt. And it was always covered in an umbrella of debt with wars. Debt for a commodity such as oil, gold, silver, wood, rubber, whatever it is. A very good example on that is World War I. World War I is when the Germans went to France, to Versailles, in order for the treaty. They were faced with a situation that they had to sign the treaty or the dictate at gunpoint. They didn't want to sign anything there because they didn't lose that many battles in that war, and actually they were forced to sign that paper because they had been cut off a couple of commodities and it was getting close. So Germany stopped repaying the United States of America and its allies from World War I in 2011. Think about that. 2011. We're talking 100 years, 99 years, payments to the victors of that time back then in order to pump up their economies, in order to allow you in America to have the cheaper gasoline. The gasoline in Europe, especially in Germany, always was very much more expensive. We're paying here in Germany. We're paying €1.50 for a quart of gasoline, for a quart, and not for a gallon. And this is because we're still subsidizing the gasoline price in the United States. The United States was very fortunate to have all these revenues, these monetary streams set up, because they were the victors, the official victors of history, and out of that they turned into the world policemen. And this was totally okay to have a hegemon over the planet, but due to an economic cycle that you cannot stop in America, America's time for a blood donation has come, and now. In the 80s and the 90s, that was addressed by the Federal Reserve and all other central banks. That is controlled by the elites, or give it another name. And they decided that they don't want to take an approach of another conflict like the Iraq War or another Vietnam or another Korea or name it whatever you want. They didn't want to have another world war when then somebody is getting the debt again, because simply the debt is too large this time. This time, the approach was chosen to develop a currency that is fully digitalized, where all the assets will be digitalized, will be combined with the Internet of Things in order to save us, to spare us from a bloodshed where your sons and our sons would stand against each other and would kill each other only to get the bookkeeping and the administrational debt counting in an order. So what you see right now is the prelude on the economies changing into another mode, changing into a complete other system. And therefore, you need the evaporation of most the industry that you had, of most big Fortune 500 companies, in order to get rid of liabilities of all kinds and sorts. This is where we're standing at. And you have now the opportunity to jump onto that new economic system that doesn't require nations anymore, where when you're smart enough to choose to start working with that, you will have not only a better start, but your life will change dramatically after that. But we expand on that after the break.
Rich Sheben's with us. Miles is with us. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USA Prepares. Absolutely riveting discussion on the reset of currencies throughout the world. We'll be right back. So the analogy that I've been thinking about is that companies make promises, like lifetime guarantees. And then they find that over time, those lifetime guarantees are really expensive to honor. So then the companies get sold to another company. And then when the customers go to exercise the lifetime warranty, the new company says, well, it's not us. We're a different company. That was with the old company. And I think that is a small analogy of what you're talking about, Miles, this currency reset, right?
Take the pensions, the pension funds. We're having right now pension fund slaughter worldwide because the banking system is so blown up, so leveraged, so over exhausted that only through very creative investment strategies, these pension funds do have a return of invest. Most pension funds, due to the low interest rates worldwide, are being slaughtered. They're cutting their payments left and right. And if you're happy and you are with one of these pension funds that offers you a lump sum, well, if I would be in a situation if a pension fund starts to fail and they offer me a lump sum, I would take the lump sum and run for the hills and invest it in something else that is the future of payment systems. And the next one is health. Health insurance and health health payments of corporations that had people working with asbestos or something like that. All these liabilities need to go. Everything needs to go back into the box. And the coming reset will be different than others. Having gold is great. I'm a gold bug. I'm a silver bug. I love them. But when I was introduced to the cryptocurrencies, I had 7 years to observe what was going on there, how they developed, and how to respond on that, or how to navigate with them now. And just to be very clear, the cryptocurrencies that are there are allowed by the same powers and authorities on this planet that allowed us to have currencies and or gold and silver as a meaning of exchange. There is no, it is so free and liberal. No. You can forget about that. Everything, every system that has been built, created here on this planet, has been created with the authority and the goodwill of somebody who signed off on it. Otherwise, you would not see from that anymore. A good example are cars that are working with water or with air, or all the levitational transportation devices that have been taken down by everybody who started to inquire into these topics. They are not sanctioned. The cryptocurrencies are sanctioned by the highest authorities on this planet in order to replace the nations or the economic regions' payment systems, and to have the capability to replace entire nations. So, for instance, let's go to South America, not to say the North American continent. Let's say, due to economic failures in South America, it is much easier to administrate the entire South American continent under one administration. That would be Argentina, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and the smaller countries there, under one umbrella. And you could do that with the cryptocurrencies. You couldn't do that with the national currencies.
Rich Scheben, you have a comment?
I do, but since we have a break coming, I'll Get on the other side. How's that?
Okay.
I'll let you go. I'll let you go first on the other side. Thank you, Rich.
Here we go. We got Miles in Europe. Rich Scheben in Montana. His website, offgridmontana.com. Offgridmontana.com if you want to contact Rich Scheben. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USA Prepares. Most important broadcast about the reset. You know, I was just thinking as we're coming back from the break that Miles said to me quite a long time ago. He said, you know, there's talk radio and there's do radio. We don't talk about it. We do it. And you're absolutely right, Miles. We do what we say, and we share our experiences with what we've done. You're absolutely right. And I was telling our engineer, who's Mackenzie right now, that you had mentioned to me, pay attention to Bitcoin at $750 per Bitcoin. It went to just under 10 times, 9.55 times that amount. One day when I checked it a couple of weeks ago, literally 9.55 times what when you said jump in at 750. You're absolutely right.
Happy I could make you some money on that one, but you ain't seen, seen nothing yet. So
what I was telling Mackenzie. I was telling Mackenzie that. I was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you say 100,000 per Bitcoin is visible?
Well, if you think about that, the Bitcoin is being mined, and there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin for the entire globe. You have to think about that. We haven't this is just an approximation, but we have an approximation on adaptivity to the cryptocurrencies right now of 3% of the entire planet, and more and more institutional investors are going in there. They cannot invest in the ETFs because they're simply not there or not allowed yet. But if you cannot invest in an ETF, a company like Sony, Nintendo, Sega, they're all spinning off companies, little companies, for their next generation gaming tools. Same thing with the banking industry. The banking industry is spinning off next generation brokerages, next generation banking systems that you can use your cryptocurrencies, and you can travel worldwide, and you can pay with a debit card, with a Visa or MasterCard, that then is being charged to your cryptocurrency account, and you will pay in the currency as you know. This is an in-betweenery for cryptocurrencies are going to be there for the only payment solution, but if they cannot invest in something in a paper, they spin off a little corporation, a little company with fresh blood, young people, and they're going into that. They're having these coin offerings, these token offerings, where you can invest into the future of this spin-off of a big Fortune 500 company right now, and you will make your money for sure on that. It's just,
you know, if you think,
go ahead.
If you think about it, traditionally banking has been in technology leadership, no question about it. I'm talking about automated audio response units, press 1, press 2, press 3, PayPal, electronic transactions, credit cards.
High-frequency
banking
trading
has been, there you go. So we can look to banking to adopt the best in technologies that will make them money. Rich Scheben, you were going to make some comments when we came back, and please do.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few quick comments. I'm going to take 1/10 of the time, all right, that Miles took, so please bear with me, okay? I just want to address the pensions, the corporations. He talked about precious metals and Bitcoin/cryptocurrencies, blockchain. So I just want to address some of those very quickly, okay? First of all, keep in mind, when we go into any type of new technology, we got to go back to the present, the definitions that have been changed by the elite to feather their own nest. And we talked about that. Miles, you mentioned the word value and leverage earlier. Okay, what do these words mean? We got to go back to what they really mean. Markets, fundamentals, fair value, liquidity, valuations, PE/PS ratios, GDP, credit, debt, core business of corporations, money printing, free market, supply and demand, velocity of money. Now, we're in the looting, fleecing stage of American corporations against the American people, and they're protected by big government, the mainstream media, and the courts. So when you look at CEOs and CFOs basically using 0% loans to buy back stocks and give themselves huge bonuses, and they're eliminating core businesses, and they're say they have increased credit ratings, and they're paying dividends, which half of them have to borrow money for, and there's no reinvestment in the company. Everything's made to look good on paper, and then they issue bonds or sell debt and bundle the bad debt or toxic assets with AAA government bonds to sell to the public, especially all these pension funds who are looking everywhere, under every rock, behind every tree for yields for their people, and all earnings are adjusted. This is protected by a fascist system. The SEC protects the fraudsters. It's analogous to the FDA and the AMA owning or being owned by Big Pharma. So you also mentioned precious metals. I mean, there's just not enough time to go to address everything you said, but I want to address a little bit of some things. So the system is fraudulent. It's fake. It's phony. So we have to go back to business practices. Okay. Next, I want to address precious metals real quick. Remember when Trump won the election, precious metals soared? Then the establishment over the next 2 to 3 days basically sold 3 times the annual global production in paper form. 3 times, okay, all in 2 to 3 days to suppress the price. And this is also known as naked shorts. And all that gold will never exist, ever. Doesn't exist, never will. And you look at the leverage, which you mentioned that term earlier, you look at gold to paper leverage, and the COMEX alone is 300 to 1. Now, I agree with what you said about silver, because silver to paper leverage is 517 to 1. And what that means, folks, is that they have 1 ounce of gold in their coffers for 517 orders. So when people think that they're ordering silver, they're no chance on getting it in the physical form. Now, regarding the cryptocurrencies, I have mixed feelings about it. I really do. Miles, you make a lot of sense. I've talked to you personally. I'm certainly not going to debate your intelligence, but I just have some red flags. Some of them being there's over 800 cryptocurrencies on the market. So you ask about inflation and devaluation of certain blockchain currencies. Could that be an issue? Absolutely. You also mentioned that it's been sanctioned by the top. To me, that's a red flag. When I've read articles where the UN wants it and some big bank wants it, like cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. To me, that tells me that they have backdoors for manipulation and confiscation. And I've also read articles where, because this industry is in its infancy, there's no anonymity like people think, and I think that's one of the major selling points on cryptocurrencies. Now, when you look over history from the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all the propaganda spent in the billions, maybe even trillions of dollars by the banks and elites to follow their protocol. Who knows who's paying for this? I also understand there's a process to convert it into cash. Is cryptocurrencies used as a tool to divide the people from precious metals? I just think there's a lot of questions here. And yes, there is an infinite number of Bitcoin, but I think one of the biggest pros about Bitcoin also was that there was no futures options and can't sell short. Well, now I'm reading about futures for Bitcoin. So now if gold was backed or silver was backed by Bitcoin somehow, I think that would be interesting, but the banks could do the same thing. They can put silver and gold into vaults and give some type of cryptocurrency for local and regional commerce and do the same thing. The big thing to me, and I mentioned this to Vince off the air, okay, when we had a commercial break a couple commercials ago. To me, it almost has a pyramid analogy issue, besides the hacking possibility, which everything regarding electronics can be hacked and will be hacked if it's not being hacked now. But the fact that people can get in early on Bitcoin like they have and make a ton of money without those key words regarding commerce, like markets, fundamentals, fair value, leverage, free market, supply and demand, all these things that I talked about earlier. When the business model has been erased because you just get in, like a pyramid analogy, and buy cryptocurrencies early so you get to become a millionaire or a billionaire, when people who might not have the sophistication of electronics, maybe they're an older generation, maybe they just don't have the money to take the chance of investing. To me, that's a little scary. Now, I certainly believe in decentralization because I can talk about the central bank corruption for months, and I think most of us can. But everything's top down. Everything is in a fascist system. I mean, 1% of the people own 83% of the stocks. 10% of the people own 96% of the stocks. So when the powers that be can get in early and the rest of the people can't, it still goes back to the aristocracy-serfdom relationship. And I mentioned this to Vince earlier. When you look at linear charts of gold, NASDAQ, and even tulip crashes of past decades and centuries, we have, when you look at it on a linear chart, basically relating to a straight line, a single dimension, those charts look very similar to where Bitcoin is right now. Now, one thing that I can't do, because I'm not part of the aristocracy that controls the thought process and the system, is tell people what to do in the future, because I don't know. I'm not high enough up there to do that. But I just wanted to mention some of these things that I bet a lot of listeners right now are discussing to themselves based on some of the things that I talked about. And there's also legislation that, you know, if you don't report $10,000 of profit to the authorities, I think you have issues, legal issues as well. So as you can see, there's been ransomware, there's been, you know, our own intelligence agencies. You got to ask yourself, who are they really working for? You know, I can talk bubbles and tulip bulbs and all this all the time. What you say makes a lot of sense. But I think there's some issues of what I've just said that certainly creates some question marks. Miles?
You're right. Let's touch upon that after the break.
Okay. We'll be right back in about just a couple minutes. We're going to pay some bills, and USA Prepares will return. Class, you know, it's absolutely abundantly clear that we're not going to be able to cover all of that we need to today. And we're going to be back with Miles on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about taxation issues. We're going to be talking about alternatives. You know, there are other cryptocurrency alternatives besides Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the most widely known, but there are others that are up and coming, and they're worth a look as well. Miles, please continue.
So I took a couple of notes while Rich was expanding on a couple of red flags he had, and I have to agree with them. There are red flags, but keep one thing in mind. Again, every system that has been provided to you is a system that needs authorization. Nothing in this world, whether you like it or not, that you're surrounded with, has somebody authorized in order to create a benefit for somebody. Go back to World War I. In World War I, and I'm touching now upon the confiscations and what happened there. World War I was used to call off the first 30% of the administrational nobility that was in high ranks and that were involved in steering countries or regions. And the same thing you see right now. The pedophilia scandal that you have right now is exactly among those who were the leaders and the steerers of the economy or society in around the globe. It's not only an American phenomenon; it is worldwide. So the same thing with the administration that happened with the administrational nobility is happening to the new monetary and or administrational nobility again. And the high nobility is still in the run. So if you, for example, look at the cryptocurrency Ripple, its short is XRP. Ripple is being created by the Ripple Institute. And the founder of the Ripple Institute is a guy called, if it doesn't escape me, if I'm right, Brian Fugger. Vince, are you online? Can you go onto Wikipedia and type in the name Fugger, Fugger.
Okay. Go in there now.
Okay, what do you find?
German family that was historically prominent group of European bankers, member of the 15th and 16th century mercantile, international mercantile bankers, venture capitalist.
So, Jacob Fugger. Jacob Fugger was the banker who was financing Kings and Caesars. And one out of the family line is the one who created the Ripple Foundation, which is now the official payment system for Microsoft. Or it's the interbanking. Go to the Ripple website and look up what kind of banks are working to get Ripple on the market for us as a payment solution that takes the SWIFT system out. IBM is using the daughter chain of Ripple, and that would be Stellar Lumens. It's the same thing. They already branched off in 2014. You never heard about it, but it's the same blockchain. And IBM, every company that has been consulted with IBM will be on a Stellar Lumen blockchain. So this is already an implementation. We're not talking about something that is coming in the next 10 years. No, we're talking about actual implementation, and implementation by those who already have been in the banking industry for centuries. So yes, you are right. Will there be cryptocurrencies that will be favored? From my point of perspective, and this is only my personal opinion on that, yes, because you see banks, regional banks in Asia, for example, the OMIS group created a token. It's called OMISE Go, and that OMISE Go token will be a payment system in Asia. So yes, banking industry is heading right into the crypto market. They're right there. They're already there. We're talking about implementation within the next 360 days with the return of invest. We're talking about Saudi Arabia. We're talking about the Arabic Emirates going onto the blockchain in full speed. Governments left and right are happy to introduce the blockchain technology to you now. And the taxation, I can touch on that after the break for a little bit.
We'll be right back. Rich Scheben's with us. Miles is with us in Europe. And Miles, you talked about Ripple. And on Monday, I'm reading an article, cryptonews.com. Gates Foundation calls on Ripple. On Monday, the Gates Foundation released Mojo Loop, software intended to provide the world's unbanked population with access to digital financial services. The software is open source, so banks will be able to adapt and implement it into their digital platforms with reduced cost and effort. The project was funded by the Gates Foundation and developed by a group of fintech companies, including Ripple. So it looks like this thing is getting a good, swift kick to move on up by Bill and Melinda Gates.
Yeah, it's well, there are a couple of them. It's not limited to Ripple or Stellar Lumen. We're going to talk on Wednesday about my personal investment strategy or portfolio and how I would approach that market, what kind of tools you need in order to get successfully started. That we will do on Wednesday. For now, it's important for me to lay the groundwork for you to get an understanding what is happening. And what is happening is we are approaching a reset. We are approaching it for the last 20 years, step by step. We call it the salami tactics. You don't throw the entire salami after somebody. You cut slices and you feed them slices. You change legislation, you change industries, you change technology to the point where you can take it to the next level. And we are there. We are taking it to the next level. We are right at the boundary. And that means there will be winners and there will be losers, because the ones that do not adapt will lose. We're talking about legislation put in place globally for somebody who is incapable of dealing with the new crypto reality, of the digital reality, that they will be required to have a guardian or a custodian for their daily business purposes. Think about that. So I'm going back to the Fugger family. The Fugger family in the 1600s, they were the follow-up of the Machiavellis in Italy. And they were in charge of promoting kings or letting them die. And the same thing right now, the same from that family, you have the family tradition continues to creating a new currency for the world that already is adapted by Microsoft and others for the coming future. So let me go back. There always will be losers, and the losers will not only be the normal Joe that has a paycheck, that's living from paycheck to paycheck, and is not putting $20 a month aside for putting it into the new paradigm that's approaching him, as well as the investor that has $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, because the corporations are showing you how they're dealing with that. They're opening up spin-offs that then will be that then create a new product or create a new service that is then being marketed on the blockchain technology. And what you're seeing with that is that politics and industry are using simple NLP techniques in order to introduce a new technology, but keep you occupied with your problems and paradigms of the past in order to keep you busy. Because the more losers there are, the more custodianships there can be appointed. So for you, in order to be prepared for what is coming, it is you cannot close your eyes and to the topic of cryptocurrencies anymore. You simply are putting your financial life and your life as well on the line. And this is the biggest investment that you can dump and throw out of the window. So be aware. This is the call for action here.
Miles, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how much that you heard off the air, but I was talking about, individual consumption is 70% of economic growth here in the States, and that's where they get that number, that, relating to GDP also. People are broke. 69% of people have $1,000 in savings at best. 78% live paycheck to paycheck. So what are the consequences of crypto low participation rate? Because obviously the great majority, which is defined, that term is defined by 75% of the people, the great majority probably aren't going to be able to play this game. And, of course, the hacking issues and, the fact of my pyramid analogy about getting in early versus the people who get in late. So can you address those things real quick?
Sure. Let me start with hacking. Hacking is not the issue. Phishing is the issue. Phishing is finding tools or creating tools or techniques in order to get your account data or your passwords in order to steal your wealth or to steal your investments or to steal your retirement. Phishing is the big problem that you have. And you need to familiarize yourself with changing passwords and randomizing them and memorizing them, and as well with security about that. You would be stupid, right out stupid, if you start investing in something new and you don't make sure that you don't cover your six, that you don't cover every side on your cybersecurity. And for that purpose, you have hardware wallets. These hardware wallets make sure that you don't have it on your computer, that if somebody phishes your computer, that your wealth cannot be stolen. Phishing is the issue that you need to learn about. So how do you protect yourself against phishing would be a good start with Google or with YouTube. The other thing that you addressed is 69% of the people are broke. Yes, this is nothing new. We have people in India that are earning $2 a day and that are investing in cryptocurrencies like on 2 or 3 cents base. I know it's hard for somebody that is used to a certain standard of living and to get your coffees and or whatever it is that is your luxury that you deem yourself as a necessity. But for what's coming, you need to go back into a state of as if you would live in a state of war. And only the most important things need to be addressed. And for the rest, what is left over, you can go and buy, and even if it's $20 or $30 a week or a month, it doesn't matter. Build yourself the foundation of what is coming. If you don't do that, you will be administrated by somebody. You will be in a portfolio of somebody who is taking care of you, where you will still receive government benefits, but they will be different this time. And simply the fact that we're talking about governments thinking about introducing legislation of guardianship or custodianship is something that I deem quite dangerous. So, whatever is your portfolio, you need to start. And you can buy cryptocurrencies or crypto coins investments for less than a cent, like 0.008 or 3 assets. And when they go up, it's important to read about them, what they're doing, who they're entangled with, and what the management team does, because there's still lots of fraud there. Yes. And then approach that from educate yourself. The necessity for self-education is here again. It's like learning to walk, learning to read. You had to learn how to go to the bank and fill out a wire transfer or a draft. Then you had to learn the online banking or the stock brokerage. And the same thing now is here for you, that you need to learn how to what tools do you need in order to have a successful start into the new paradigm? Because one thing is for sure, when the reset approaches us, you will see $7,000 per Bitcoin. This is hyperinflation, but not on the Bitcoin side. It's on the dollar side, and on all the other currencies. It is hyperinflation. If you look at it from that standpoint, you see what kind of problems our currencies are in right now.
Miles, last night you and I were on the phone off air, and you were talking about spare parts for Volkswagen.
Yeah.
And yes, and I'm just putting an exclamation point on what you said about the dollar is losing traction. It's costing more and more and more for spare parts. It's costing more and more and more for Bitcoin.
Well, it is, because the Bitcoin is representing an actual value of people that are starting to trust into the cryptocurrency as a means of wealth or a means of wealth storage, and are escaping the banking industries worldwide in terms of bonds, stocks, and other papers that, like Rich said, absolutely correctly, that are over leveraged. If you want to buy, if you're going to the stock exchange and you buy a gold certificate or a silver certificate, you won't get any, because 300 others or even 500 others if you want to claim it, 300 to 500 others are waiting for the same thing if they would claim it on the same day. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing is the cryptocurrencies are the tool in addition with NLP technologies to keep you occupied. And now you will see the cryptocurrencies coming more and more into the news and coming more and more into public awareness. And this is like when you're going to a schooling or when a corporation is merging, and you will see a logo. When they send you letters or an email, first you see the logo of the one that is taking over on the upper left upper corner, and the big logo is still the old one. And then suddenly it changes to the middle and then to the right with the new logo. Same thing is with the cryptocurrencies.
And that is the main point of today's class, that you can either get on board or you get run over by the cryptocurrencies. And it's clear that you're going to have a learning path that you got to get on. Class, if you put health aside, this is probably the most important broadcast that USA prepares has ever done, in my opinion. We're going to continue it on Wednesday, so if you want to set your dial, Wednesday, same time, same station. Miles, please continue.
So another mark that I put down here from Rich was the legislation and taxation, as well as anonymity, privacy. So right now, you in America have the great opportunity that when you are buying cryptocurrencies and you keep them in the cryptocurrencies, you don't exchange them back into dollars with a gain, that in that case, you don't have to pay any kind of taxes. As when you start to converting it back into U.S. dollars, then you have to put it up into your income tax as a gain. Of course, you have to. In Europe, it's different. In Europe, cryptocurrencies are counted as currencies per se. And if I buy something, I have to sit on it for a year, and I have to document it that the tax authorities don't tax me 50% of the gains out. So it is a regional thing, and you have to, wherever you are on the planet, you have to find out about that more. But in America right now, you have the better legislation for that, the tax legislation, than we do have, for example, in Germany or in Austria or in France. Or maybe even the entire EU. I haven't checked on the EU, but this is something that you have to find out. However, I am a long-term investor. I'm not a day trader. I'm not interested in that because I have things to do here on the farm. So I'm looking for investments that pay out after half a year or a year, where I can sit on that easily and then sell, or even keep them. I'm not going into the hassle and I'm starting to become a private broker or starting my private brokerage here. That's not intended by me. That's legislation. Taxation. No, that was taxation. Legislation. You see that countries now start to embrace the blockchain. Why? In administration, if you can size, the size of administration can be shrunk if you're adopting the blockchain in administration, because whatever needs to be done in an administration can be put on a blockchain, distributed to the necessary parts that in the administration that need to address something, change something, do something. And the means of communications and the authority thereby will be distributed automatically through the blockchain. It's a little complicated, but IBM is very big in exactly doing that, in streamlining businesses and businesses such as nations in order to be blockchain ready. Anonymity. Anonymity is something that the blockchain itself, there is no name from you on there. So every transaction is actually anonymous unless you put in a contract with Ether currencies, for example, that you define certain things, such as if I would like to buy a house from you, Vince, that I'm putting it down with the buying date, what kind of house, what deed number, that this and that needs to be done and inspected and repaired before this digital contract will be released to you, and you have to prove it to me. And if you don't prove it to me, I don't unleash the contract. So you have the smart contracts built into the new cryptocurrencies as well, and it is only traceable upon numbers, such as your it's like your social security number. You will have a number that you can be recognized with an account, but you can have an unlimited, infinite amount of accounts. That's all for now. We continue on Wednesday about that.
Rich Shealy, thank you so much for being with us today. And I understand that, Rich, you're going to be moving to Tuesdays, and Gwyneth Isaacs is going to be Mondays. Is that right?
Oh, well, this is the first time I'm hearing it. That sounds awesome.
Okay, I sent you that email yesterday. Okay, so Rich Shealy will be back with us next Tuesday. Gwyneth will be on Mondays. Miles will be back on Wednesday. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Class, thank you.